Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Monday, July the 21st. Monday, July the 21st, the year is 2025. It is a little after 7 this morning, 7:06. And I am late with this video. Actually, what it is I'm redoing the video that I did last night for my covenant studies, which was my Sabbath study. On Sabbath, I'm studying covenants. I have this series that I was working on at the time that I was doing my Sabbath studies, which was every scripture that dealt with Sabbath. I was also working on this series called Understanding Covenant, which I did during the weekday. And in the process of working on that series, I had finished the Sabbath series, and then I was also working on a different series, which was a 3-part series that had me in Ezekiel. I was working on that series, so when I finished the Sabbath studies, I ended up picking up this series, which is Understanding Covenant. And so everything is merging and blending in the most amazing way. And yeah, so this past Saturday, my study was in Genesis chapter 31. I was looking at this relationship, the dynamics of the relationship between Jacob and his father-in-law, Laban. And in this particular study, the overall about this study was that Jacob was getting ready to leave. It was time. It was time to go. And I would say, if you want to go back and check this story out, I would say to start in chapter 30, because it's in chapter 30, the latter part of chapter 30. I think it's verses 16, maybe to the end. I'm thinking maybe, I don't know. Bible right here, let me go. So the latter part of Genesis chapter 30, I feel is a good place to start, because verse 25 of chapter 30, I think it's a good place to start, because you will see that Jacob asked Laban to leave. He wanted to leave. And so he was like, send me away, that I may go to my own place, my own country. Give me my wives, because he had 2 wives. He was like, give me my wives, give me my children so that I could go. And Laban, of course, encouraged him to stay. Hey, so it is 10:28 in the morning. It is still Monday, July the 21st. I know I'm dressed different. Went out and did some lawn, so yeah. Anyway, I'm interjecting this here because as I am editing this video and listening to it, it was the wording that I chose to use, but it wasn't my wording, because I was actually reading from the scripture, and I'm like, I'll be darned, that sound like slavery. It literally sounded like slavery when Jacob said to Laban, give me my wives and my children so that I can leave. They're your wives. Why do you have to ask another man to give them to you? And then I began to think back to some of the slave movies that I would watch, where the owners, what was that movie? Harriet, the movie Harriet, the latest one with, I can't think of the young lady's name, but the movie about Harriet Tubman, and the man asked for the freedom of his wife. I think he gained his freedom, but he asked for the freedom of his wife so that they could go to his wife and children, so that they could go too. And the slave owner was like, no. And I'm like, that kind of sound like what I just read here. So wow. I'm just saying. Just run it in. Okay. He wouldn't let him go. And he basically was like, I understand. I know that I'm blessed because of you, stay and whatever you want, name your wages, And so Jacob did, and he stayed, and he separated what his wages was. He separated it from the work that he did for his father-in-law, so that it couldn't be said, that he was doing anything to steal. I'm gonna use the word steal. So it couldn't be said that he was doing anything to steal from his father-in-law. So here we are in chapter 31 of Genesis, and we're looking at the fact that things begin to change. Relationship. We're looking at the change in the relationship. We're looking at how bad things had gotten to the point that it was like, you know what? I gotta go. I'm done. I gotta go. And that's what happened with Laban. Laban's brothers-in-law, and that part, just to even think that these girls had some brothers, I never really considered that, because you never really hear about them. But they were all in their feelings. They were feeling some type of way because God was increasing Jacob and decreasing Laban. So it really was to Laban's benefit that Jacob left, because the longer Jacob stayed, the more Laban would have lost. The more Laban would have lost. That's how I feel looking at this. So anyway, this chapter really impressed upon me the need to leave when things start souring. Like, why is it that we stay in situations that are bad? Why do we do that? Okay, so there's a scripture in the New Testament that talks to us about enduring, right? And so we go through things and we endure bad situations. Let me show you, because this scripture here, and what I was looking at in Genesis chapter 31, it just really got me to thinking, why is it that we sit for so long in bad situations? So what comes to mind, and this is not in my notes, I'm definitely not on my notes at this point, but what comes to mind is the scripture in Hebrews. It's Hebrews chapter 10, verse number 36, and this is what it says. It says, therefore do not cast away. Well, I'm going to start at verse 32. It says, but recall the former days in which after you were illuminated, in other words, after the light came on, after the light came on up here, after you were illuminated, you endured a great struggle with sufferings. It says, recall them days in which after you were illuminated, you endured a great struggle with sufferings, partly while you were made a spectacle both by reproaches and tribulations, and partly while you became companions of those who were so treated. For you had compassion on me in my chains, and joyfully accepted the plundering of your goods, knowing that you have a better and enduring possession for yourselves in heaven. Therefore, do not cast away your confidence, which has great reward, for you have need of endurance, so that after you have done the will of God, you may receive the promise. So that part, that's one of the scriptures that I hold on to help me to endure certain things. The purpose of our going through, the purpose of our enduring is not because we are gluttons for punishment. I needed to say that. The purpose of our enduring is not because we're gluttons for punishment. The purpose of our enduring is so that after we have done the will of God, that we may receive the promise. So we endure and we don't give out because of the fact that we are doing God's will. And so that we leave when God say leave. There's something there's a transfer. Listen, because that might make you feel some type of way listening to this, but there is a transfer of wealth that occurs when you wait on the Lord and when you don't prematurely leave a situation, but you leave when God calls you to leave. I'm going to give you an example. The first example that I want to give is that of the Israelites in Egypt. There was a transfer of wealth that happened right before it was time for them to come out of Egypt. And we all know how badly they were being treated in Egypt. But because they endured, and not just enduring the harshness of the treatment, but they endured to the end. Who said it was the end? God did. He sets those standards, but because they trusted him, they waited on him, and they endured to the end, they experienced this transfer of wealth wherein Egypt was plundered. It said they practically stripped Egypt of everything, and they richly left out and went into the wilderness. Well, here, what we're studying in Genesis chapter 31, there was also a transfer of wealth. And so I want to show you that transfer of wealth. I'm just going to start at verse 31 of chapter 30. It says, and it came to pass, I'm going to start at verse 41 of chapter 30 of Genesis. It says, and it came to pass, whenever the stronger livestock conceived, that Jacob placed the rods before the eyes of the livestock in the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. But when the flocks were feeble, he did not put them in. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. Thus the man became exceedingly prosperous. He didn't just become prosperous, y'all. He became exceedingly. Do I need to go look that word up? Let me go look that word up, because I want you to see just how richly God blesses his people. Remember, like we know the scripture, we know to say that King Jesus came not that we might have life, but that we might have it abundantly. So he came to bring us abundant life. And here Jacob was exceedingly prosperous. Let's look that word up, exceedingly. Exceedingly. Abundantly above all. Exceedingly means extremely, to a great degree, extraordinarily, very. So it means exceedingly. Exceedingly is an adverb. It's taken from the word exceed, which means to go or be beyond a limit, beyond a limiting regulation, beyond a measure, beyond measure. I like that. To be more than or greater than, to surpass, to outdo, to surpass others as in a quality or quantity, to be outstanding. So he exceedingly prospered. And it said, and had large flocks, female and male servants, camels and donkeys. So here in chapter 31, listen, it's letting you know in chapter 31 that not everybody is happy about your and my prospering. It says, verse 31, starting at verse 1, chapter 31, starting at verse 1, says, now Jacob heard the words of Laban's sons, his brother-in-laws, right? He now overhears the words of his sons saying, Jacob has taken away all that was our father's, and from what was our father's, he has acquired all this wealth. And so it says, verse 2, and Jacob saw the countenance, or the attitude, the demeanor. He saw the countenance of Laban, and indeed it was not favorable toward him as before. Then the Lord spoke to Jacob and said, return to the land of your fathers, to your family, and I will be with you. And this part here. So remember, we said that we endure to the end. And at the end of the matter, the Lord will speak to you. The Lord will speak to you. So listen, is there anything that you're going through right now? Pray about it. Pray and listen for the voice of the Lord. And if the Lord is not speaking to you in this situation, if the Lord is telling you in this situation, wait, then don't be so quick to move. Don't be so fussy. Wait, because it says, as Hebrews put it, we have need of endurance, so that after we have done the will of God, we may receive the promise. It says, verse 35 and 36 of Hebrews chapter 10, don't cast away your confidence, which has great reward. Don't cast away your confidence, which have great reward. It says, for you have need of endurance, so that after you have done the will of God, you may receive the promise. And so God, like wait on the Lord, trust in the Lord. Do not be afraid. Know that God has got you. Know that God has got you. And know also that when it's time, He will move you. He will remove you from that situation, and it'll be suddenly. And He did it suddenly. I gotta go find that song. It says, anyway, I gotta go find this song so I can hear this song now, because I haven't thought of that song in a long time. So anyway, when it was time, the Lord spoke to Jacob and told him to return to the land of his fathers, return to his family. And God told him, because Jacob would have been afraid to do so. He would have remembered why he left. And his fear of Esau, he would have remembered all of that. And so it was also key to why we wait and when we leave. God said to Jacob, He said, I will be with you. So one of the reasons that you want to wait on the Lord is because you want to make sure that you're in His timing. Listen, who enriches us, who prospers us, not just prosper, but exceedingly prospers us, is God. You want to stay in His timing. You want to stay in alignment with God. You want to make sure that you're going in the same direction as God, because when you're not, when you go the other way, listen, if this is where you're prospering and you decide to go to, you're going to lose. You're going to lose everything. So you wait on the Lord. You wait on His timing. And when He says now, when He shifts, you want to shift with Him. One of my prayers is that God binds my mind to the mind of Christ. Bind my mind, especially in this world where there's so much deception that is going on. My prayer has been to the Lord to please bind my mind to the mind of Christ. I don't want to be deceived by this world. I don't want no parts of that. Bind me. And when you bind something, it's wrapped. Like, bind me so that when God moves, I move just like that. When God shifts, I shift just like that. Bind me to the mind of Christ. So God, the Lord told Jacob, it's time. Now it's time to leave. And Jacob, what he did was he called his two wives, Rachel and Leah, and he talked to them about it. This is what he said. He said to them, I see your father's countenance. Like, I see what's going on with your dad. Like, your dad is, It says, but the God of my father has been with me. And you know that with all my might I have served your father. Yet your father has deceived me and changed my wages 10 times. But God did not allow him to hurt me in that part there. Like, these are things that we need to keep in mind. When you are walking with the Lord, when the Lord is with you, it doesn't matter what man does. It does not matter what the intentions of man is. They cannot hurt you unless God allows it. They cannot hurt you. For example, and I got three case in points to prove this. So that because we need to get this stuff in our heart, especially for today and for all the things that we're doing and dealing with today. We need to get it in our heart that when I belong to the Lord, if you know that, I don't know who's watching these videos, but you know, and if you know and believe that you belong to God, that you are his and that he is your God, listen. Nothing and no one can touch you unless God allows it. And many times when God allows the nations, the Gentiles, the world, others to touch you, he's disciplining for whatever he's disciplining. And that's why he tells us to humble ourselves. He says, if I shut up the heavens so that it don't rain, if we're going through and we're experiencing financial issues, he says, if I do that, he said, if I command the locusts to devour, if we're going through life and all of a sudden we're having relational issues, or breakdowns, a lot of breakdowns, he said, if I send a plague among my people, if we're going through life and all of a sudden we're facing health issues, God told us what to do. Any one of those. We don't have to experience all three. We could just experience one. He says, if we experience any things, he says, if my people who are called by my name, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, will pray, will seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, he says, then I'll hear from heaven, I'll forgive you your sin, and I'll heal your land. So he's literally telling us what to do. He's showing us how to recognize when he is disciplining us. He's showing us how to recognize that. And we need to keep that in mind so that when we come across an issue where somebody is doing something and it's uncomfortable for us, what we need to do is take it before the Lord, humble ourselves, pray, seek God's face, make sure we're not doing anything we're not supposed to, because if we are, we need to turn from that and endure until God's will has been done, that we may receive the reward. And so here, my cases in point. First case in point was Sarah. When she was taken by Abimelech, the king of Gerar, the Philistines, Gaza over there, she was taken by him as a wife. It was kind of how they did things back then. He didn't know that she was really Abraham's wife. He didn't know because they were going around talking about, that's my brother, that's my sister, and although they were not lying, because technically they were half brother and sister, still, she was still his wife. So when Abimelech took Sarah, God protected Sarah and went to Abimelech and told him, you about to die. Like he literally told Abimelech, you about to die for this woman. And he told him to return her. And Abimelech, ironically, and this is something that kind of stood out to me, because the past couple of studies, I think chapter 26, chapter 21, maybe, I was looking at Abimelech there in his interactions with Abraham. And so what I come to understand is chapter 26, Abimelech's interactions with Isaac. Chapter 21, his interactions with Abraham. And so what I come to understand is those people in the Philistines, those people in Gaza over there, they were God-fearing people, y'all. They were God-fearing people. That I don't know how I missed that before, but anyway. So when Abimelech found out who Sarah was, he returned her, and not only did he return her to Abraham, but he returned her with wealth, with riches. So there was a wealth transfer. I'm going to say that again. There was a wealth transfer. Then you have Job. And you have the 2 times that Satan came up against Job. The first time he was like, you blessing him so much, that's the reason why he's serving you. So God allowed Satan to do what he do, but God told him, don't touch him. Don't touch him. So Satan, the devil had to have permission. The second time he was like, well, he didn't curse you because you withholding him and you protected him. And God was like, okay, you could touch him now, but be careful that you don't take his life. So that part, knowing that for anybody to come at us and touch us in any type of way, they have to have permission. Number 3, my third witness, because remember, at the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let every matter be firmly established. So my third witness will be King Jesus himself. If you remember, when he was preparing to die for us and he was before Pontius Pilate, there was a time when Pontius Pilate was questioning him and he was not answering the questions at all. And so Pontius Pilate made the statement to him. He was like, don't you know who you're talking to? Don't you know that I have the power to release you? I have the power to set you free. And King Jesus at that point made the statement to him. He said, you would not have no power over me at all if it was not given to you from heaven. And so that part, that's something that we all need to remember in this world that we live in. Regardless of the intentions of man cannot touch you to do no harm to you unless God allows it. As a matter of fact, I like how we're told this very same thing in the book of Isaiah. It's chapter 54 and it's verse number 13. Nope, not at all. That's the one for my kids. That's 54:13. That's the promise that I hold on when it comes to my children. This is chapter 54 and it's verse number 17. And this is what it says. It says, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. It said, now listen, that did not say the weapon won't form. It said that no weapon, regardless of what that weapon is, formed against you, it says it won't prosper. And every tongue which rises against you in judgment, you shall condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is from me, says the Lord. Let's look up that word, heritage. Heritage. This is an inheritance. Heritage. Heritage. H-E-R-I-T-A-G-E. Heritage. It says property that is or can be inherited. Something handed down from one's ancestors or the past as a characteristic, culture, tradition, etc. The rights, burdens, or the rights, burdens, or status resulting from being born in a certain time or place, a birthright. So, what did it say is our birthright? It says, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. That is an inheritance. It is a birthright. It says, for those who are born again, for those who are servants of the Most High God, this is your birthright. It says, every tongue which rises against you in judgment, you shall condemn. This is the heritage, the birthright of the servants of the Lord. And it says, and their righteousness is from me, says the Lord. So here in the book of Genesis, chapter 31, when Jacob decided to leave, it is because God told him. He says, return to the land of your fathers and to your family, and I will be with you. And then as he's talking to them, to his wives, because now he's telling his wives, because here's the thing, y'all, we become comfortable. We become comfortable. The wives was in their own territory. They was around people that they knew. They was around their dad, their family, their cousins, their aunts, their uncles, and so they now, and who was displaced was Jacob, their husband. And so now they have to leave all of that. Leave it all. They have a choice. So he's saying to them, I see your father's confidence, that it is not favorable towards me as before. But the God of my father has been with me. And you know that with all my might I served your father. You know, like he's able to condemn. Remember, the heritage, the inheritance, the birthright is that no tongue, and any tongue that rises against us to condemn us, we will condemn them. So here he's showing, you know how I treated your father. You know how I served your father. It says, but your father, he deceived me and changed my wages 10 times. Not once, not twice, 10 times. It says, but God did not allow him to hurt me. What God? The God of my fathers did not allow him to hurt me. He says, if he said thus, the speckle shall be your wages, then all the flocks bore a speckle. And if he said, the streak shall be your wages, then all the flocks bore a streak. So God has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. Like he's literally proving this stuff and showing this stuff to his wives. It says, it happened at the time when the flocks conceived that I lifted my eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leaped upon the flocks were streaked, speckled, and gray spotted. Then the angel of God spoke to me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, here I am. That part. When God speaks to you, how do you respond? How do you respond? For me, it has helped me to get up early. Like, to get up early, really, and get here before the Lord. I know this is where I'm supposed to be. So that has helped me, knowing that who wakes me up is the Lord. And when he wakes me up, he's waking me up for his purpose. And in the following King Jesus' footsteps, King Jesus got up early. Okay, so it wasn't dark 30 when I got up this time, but only because of the fact that I went to bed kind of late. So, but when I got up, I knew, get here in the presence, get myself together, and get here in the presence of the Lord, and let the Lord equip me, fully equip me for this day. Following King Jesus' footsteps, he always got before the Lord. He always woke up early before everybody else woke up, and everybody else in the house is still asleep. So he got me up early, woke me up, or Jesus would get up early and wake up before everybody else, and then he would go and get in the presence of the Lord, and he would spend time in the presence of the Lord. And then when they got up and they came and found him, then they would go about their day. And so that stood out to me, because back when I was studying about those 9 powerless disciples, why was they powerless? Why was those 9 powerless? Because they were operating in their own strength. And a lot of times people do that today. So that was one of the things that I learned. Get in the presence of the Lord. Listen. Get still before the Lord. Follow his leading. Follow his voice. And so the angel of God spoke to him how? In a dream. In a dream. And he called him Jacob. And Jacob responded, here I am. So Oh, that takes me to that song. Someone's knocking at your door. Do you hear him knocking? Gotta go listen to that song again too. So anyway, let me write these songs down that I want to go listen to. So the first one was Suddenly, and he did it suddenly. And then the other one, Someone's knocking at your door. Okay, I want to listen to those songs today. So this part here, when Jacob responded, "Here I am," it was what God said next that stood out to me, and it stood out to me in a huge way. This is what he said, because I'm about to tell you why. So he said, it says, and he said, this is verse 12 of Genesis chapter 31. Lift your eyes now and see. Lift your eyes. It means you're going to look and see. It says, all the rams which leap on the flocks are streaked, speckled, and gray spotted. Why? For I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. For I've seen it. I see everything that Laban is doing to you. He says, I am. Now we know I am is Yahweh, right? He says, I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed the pillar and where you made vow to me. Now arise, get out of this land and return to the land of your family. So he's literally telling him what to do. Now this is why this stood out to me. When he said, I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. A lot of times we feel like nobody knows what we're going through. We feel like nobody, I'm just itchy all of a sudden. Stop. Like I'm just, all of a sudden I'm itchy. Like my nose itching, my ears start itching. Yeah, these distractions. So stop. Because it's distracting. It's distracting me. Like, yeah. So when he said, I've seen all that Laban is doing to you, a lot of times we feel like, we're alone. Especially when we're going through, like, we feel like nobody understands, and we get in our emotions and our feelings. But to hear God say, I've seen it. I've seen all that Laban has done to you. He said, and so he said, look, let's go back and look at what he said before. Because he said, lift your eyes and see. Look at all the rams. That they are streaked, all of them, streaked, speckled, and gray spotted. All of them. Why? Because I've seen what Laban is doing to you. In other words, he's telling them, look at this wealth that you now have. Look at the wealth transfer. The reason why you have this wealth transfer is because I see what he's doing. So I am stripping him. Because it literally said, he said, all the rams, see all the rams which leap on the flocks are streaked, speckled, and gray spotted. All of them. Not some, all of them. And so that part, that reminded me of this. And we're going to talk about this again when we get to the covenant part that was made. But what it reminded me of is that God sees. And that's the thing that we need to remember too. Every single thing that we're going through, how we're being treated, how we're being spoken to, God sees it. But not only does God see, not only is our Father Jehovah El Roy, the God who sees, or Yahweh El Roy, the God who sees, but he is also a God who hears. It says here, I am Yahweh, the God of Bethel, where you anointed the pillar, so it sees, and made a vow to me. So not only did God see, and this happened in Genesis chapter 28. So I would encourage you to go and read that part. But it says where you anointed the pillar and where you made a vow to me. So God saw Jacob. He's not just seeing Laban, he's also seeing Jacob. And I like that too, because a lot of times when something is happening, people like to tell their side of the story. And here, God says, I've seen all that Laban is doing to you. But he also let him know that I saw you too. I saw where you anointed this pillar and where you made a vow to me. So he sees and he hears. Let's go look at that. Genesis chapter 28. Genesis chapter 28. So in this particular chapter, that's where Jacob is running away. Well, he's not running away, but he's leaving. His father sends him to go to his mama's brother. And he did that because of the fact that they became aware that Esau, Jacob's twin brother Esau, was angry and plotting to kill Jacob. So they sent him away. So he's, this is verse number 10 of Genesis chapter 28. I'm going to start there. It says, now Jacob went out from Beersheba and went toward Haran. So Beersheba is right. Like, okay, so Beersheba. Beersheba would be like here. Jerusalem will be here. Bethel will be here. And Haran will be up here, right? And so he's down here and he's headed towards Haran. To Syria. He's headed towards Syria, to where his uncle is, to Haran. And he stops off, he passes Jerusalem, he stops off in Bethel. And so it says, now Jacob went out from Beersheba and went toward Haran. So he came to a certain place and stayed there all night, because the sun had set. So, he did like a day's travel, right? Whatever. It says, and he took one of the stones of that place and put it at his head. Like a pillow that he would lay his head on. It says, and he lay down to sleep in that place. Then he dreamed, and behold, a ladder was set up on the earth, and its top reached to heaven, and there the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give to you and your descendants. Also your descendants shall be as the dust of the earth. You shall spread abroad to the west and the east, to the north and the south. And in you and in your seed all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I've spoken to you. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God. That's what Bethel means. Beth means house in Hebrew. Beth means house, and El means God. So that's Bethel. It says, and this is the gate of heaven. Then Jacob rose early in the morning and took the stone that he had put at his head, set it up as a pillar. So, like he took the stone, he's laying his head on, and he sits it up now as a pillar. It says, and he poured oil on top of it, and he called the name of that place Bethel. But the name of the city had been Luz previously. So this city was called Luz, the Canaanite city. But Bethel gave it a new name. Jacob gave it a new name. He called it Bethel, or the house of God. It says, verse 20, then Jacob made a vow. Because remember, that's what the Lord said to Jacob. The angel of the Lord said to Jacob, he says, I am the God of Bethel. He says, I am the God of Bethel. In other words, he reminded him of what he saw when he was coming, leaving his dad in Beersheba and going towards Haran. He says, where you anointed the pillar. And we just read that, of how he took the rock that he laid his hand on, that stone that he laid his hand on, and set it up as a pillar. He says, this is verse 20, then Jacob made a vow saying, if God be with me, if God be with me, and give me bread to eat and clothing to put on, that's your sustenance. That's everything we need. Clothes, bread. He says, so that I come back to my father's house. Now he's asking to be brought back from the place where he's leaving, in peace. Not just to be brought back, but to come back in peace. It says, then the Lord shall be my God, and this stone which I have set as a pillar shall be God's house. Again, Bethel, house of God. And of all that you give me, because now he's acknowledging where everything he has comes from God. So he says, and of all that you give me, I will surely give a tenth to you. So that's that tithing, right? He speaks of tithing. So here, the angel of God in chapter 31, verse number 13, it says, I am the God of Bethel. Remember Bethel? I'm the God of Bethel, where you anointed the pillar and where you made a vow to me. God said, I saw you. I am Jehovah Elroy. I saw you. I am Jehovah El Shammah. El Shammah. Shammah means here. So he says, not only am I the God who saw you, I'm a God who hears you. That part. So in whatever that you're going through and whatever that struggle is, God is seeing everything and he's hearing everything too. What is your part in it? A lot of times when we go through a struggle, we always like to tell our story for what somebody else did to us. But what was it that we did? What was it that we said? God is paying attention, that part. So it says, and I like how Rachel and Leah answered to respond to him. They answered taking note of everything that Jacob said and saying, yeah, I experienced this too. I saw this too. That's what they said. Are we not considered strangers by him, by our own dad? Like he's kind of treating us some type of way too. And they acknowledged that before Jacob. But then they said something that really stood out to me. They said, whatever God has said to you, do. That part. Whatever God has said to you, do. A lot of times when people have these experiences where God is dropping something into their heart, God is telling them to do something, they don't do it. Like they talk themselves out of it, or they allow themselves to be talked out of doing whatever God says to do because of somebody else's fear. I'm going to share this experience. My husband and I, we were newly married. And I was already on this journey before meeting my husband, wherein God told me to go. I had to go. This was a journey of faith that I was walking. So I had gotten an email from somebody that I knew, and it was just a link. So I reached out to them to find out, did you send me this? Because I always tell people this, but they still do it. I don't open blank links. If somebody sends me an email and there's nothing written in the description, it's just a link, I'm not going to open it. If they send me a text message and there's nothing written, it's just a link, I'm not going to open it, because I've learned that those could be viruses, spam and viruses, so I'm just not going to open it. So when I reached out and I found out, that wasn't a blank, like that was sent to me, and I opened it and we talked. It was a pastor that was wanting us to go to Virginia, so which we were in Tennessee, so we're over here and they wanted us to go over here. So I gave the phone to my husband. I talked to him for a minute, and then I gave the phone to my husband, and they talked. And then after they talked, I prayed about it, and I'm like, Lord, if I'm supposed to go. And so I remember saying to my husband, because it was dropped in my spirit, I needed to go. So I remember saying to my husband, I'm going. Like, I'm on this journey. I'm on this faith journey. Wherever God tells me to go, I am going. And so I told him, I was like, like you can stay if you want to, but I got to go. And so my husband decided to go too. And I remember his family, my in-laws, his family, at first they was like, they were like, where you gonna stay? This doesn't make sense. Da 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 da. And I was like, I'm going. And we left. And listen, when we left to go to Virginia, we did not already have a home to stay in. We were basically homeless. We took our little, listen, I don't know how old you are, any of you all are that are watching this, but there was a show called Beverly Hillbillies, right? And so it says, and they loaded up the truck and they moved to Beverly Hills, that is, Texas, Black Gold, no, what it say, Hills, movie star, something, I can't even remember, but it's called Beverly Hillbillies. And that's in my book that I wrote. I'll be releasing the book soon. I promise y'all. I'm going to work on releasing that book this week because it's already done. It's called Many Are Called to the Journey, and it literally tells the story of this journey, and it tells our moving. Like this that I'm telling you, it literally goes into detail with that story. But we packed up everything and, packed it into a moving truck, and we moved. We left. And when we got to Virginia, like the entire trip, the entire drive, we were stopping in places that reminded me of Abraham and his journey. Like there was one city we stopped in, it was called Lebanon. And then there was another city, I can't remember the name of the other city, but these were biblical names. And so the entire ride, like I just knew that God had us on this journey. Excuse me. So we end up arriving in Virginia. Again, we're homeless, and we stayed in the church where we were going to serve at. We stayed in the church parsonage for 2 months before we found our home, our place that we rented. So how about this, y'all? How about every time we went back to Virginia, like, because we left there and we ended up coming here to Florida afterwards, like, again, following God's voice. But there was something that we had to get there. There was something that we had to do while we were there. And so when we left to move here to Florida, it was time, and we knew that God was causing us to move. Anyway, whenever we would go back to Virginia, because I have a son that lives there, my family that was here visiting, is from this actual city that we were living in. And so whenever we go back, we will always go and look at like where we used to live. We'll just go like drive around. So this last time we went back last year, we drove down the street we used to live on, and how about the house that we used to live in is completely gone. It's level. It's nothing but ground. The house is completely gone. So that kind of, I don't know, that kind of did something to me. But anyway, I like what Jacob's wives said to him. They said, whatever God has said to you, do it. That part, do it. And that's something that I want to support my husband in that. Like when when God is speaking to you, if God is not speaking to you, no, don't do that. But if God is speaking to you, if you present something to me, if he presents something to me, and he's saying that God dropped this in his heart, then do it. Whatever God is speaking to you, do it. And it's the same for me. Whatever God is speaking to me, do it. Make sure, and that's what I'm sharing with you, make sure that you are hearing from the Lord. Whatever God is speaking to you, do it. Do not be afraid. So anyway, he immediately he gets up and he gets all his family, all his belongings, and they take off. And the timing was so perfect because it just so happened that Laban was gone. Laban was away. He was shearing his sheep. And so in my reading this, like I thought of a lot of different things. I thought of like when you're in an abusive situation and you're waiting for that time, that opportunity that you have to leave. And when that opportunity comes, you hurry up and get out. I saw all of that reading this. So anyway, 3 days later is when Laban finds out that Jacob is gone, and he gets his posse. Listen, Laban was a character, y'all. Laban was a character. He gets his posse together, and they go after him. You know, it took them 7 days to catch up with him, because they already had a 3-day start, because what Jacob was doing, and I kind of feel like he was preparing, and I could understand that, preparing for that moment to leave. I could definitely understand that. I had a book that I wrote called Portrait of a Survivor, where it talks about the years of my life where I was in a domestically violent situation and how God brought me out. So I understand that preparing to leave, because one of the things we looked at in Genesis chapter 30 is how it says here, Genesis chapter 30, verse number 36, 35 and 36, it says, so he removed that day the male goats that were speckled and spotted, and all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had some white in it, and all the brown ones among the lambs, and he gave them into the hands of his sons. So Jacob gave it to his 12 to keep. It says, and then he put 3 days journey between himself and Jacob, and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flock. So I don't know, maybe this was Laban that did that, into the hands of his sons. And he put a 3 days journey between himself and Jacob. So Jacob and Laban, they had separated themselves. And when he did that, I felt like that was a preparation for what was to come. But anyway, it took them 7 days. Laban and his posse, it took them 7 days to catch up with Jacob. And when they caught up with Jacob, like the way Laban came at Jacob, he came at him as if, you know, why you snuck away, like he did something wrong. This is what he said: what have you done that you have stolen away, unknown to me, carried away my daughters like captives, taken with the sword, like you plundered me? Like it says, why did you flee secretly and steal away from me and not tell me? And when I read that, that's what made me go back and look at chapter 30, and that's why I said go back and read chapter 30, because there you will see Jacob told Laban that he wanted to go. He told him, but Laban had excuses for him to stay. So yeah, if the Lord is telling me to go, and I already know how you're gonna respond, I'm about to leave. This is he says, for I might have sent you away with joy and songs, with timbrel and harp. Number one, we already know Laban to be a liar. So it says, and you did not allow me to kiss my sons, talking about the 12 that was born to Jacob. He says, you didn't allow me to kiss my sons and my daughters. Now you have done foolishly in so doing. It's like he says, verse 29, and just keep going. It is in my power to do you harm, but the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, be careful that you speak to Jacob, neither good nor bad. It says, and now you have surely gone, because you greatly long for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods? So and what Jacob didn't know was that Rachel had did that. And it could have turned out bad for Jacob and for Rachel if Rachel would have got caught, but Rachel didn't get caught. She was slick too, just like her daddy. She was slick. Anyway, so we get past all of that, and remember we read in Isaiah chapter 54 verse 17, where it says, no weapon formed against you will prosper. So we saw that the weapon formed, which was Laban, did not prosper because God shut Laban down. Even as he was getting started, he shut him down and told him, don't you touch him. Be careful. Be careful. And then Isaiah 54:17 also said, nor any tongue rise in judgment against you. And so, wait a minute, how did it say it? Because it didn't say it like that. It's how I always say it. But it said, any tongue that rises in judgment against you, you shall condemn. I think it says 54:17. It says, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment, you shall condemn. And so this part where Laban called himself rising in judgment against Jacob, and being mad, and you stole my God, da, 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 da. Verse 36 says, because they didn't find anything, because again Rachel sat on them and then told them she was on her cycle, so Verse 36, then Jacob was angry and rebuked Laban. Remember what we just read about the tongue rising against us will condemn? So it says, and Jacob answered and said to Laban, what is my trespass? What is my sin, that you have so hotly pursued me? Although you searched all my things, what part of your household things have you found? Set it here before my brethren and your brethren, that they may judge between us both. These 20 years I have been with you, your anyway, and your female goats have not miscarried their young. Ewes, I think, are like the female sheep. And your female goats have not miscarried their young. And I have not eaten the rams of your flock. That which was torn by beasts, I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it. You required it from my hand, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. There I was. In the day the drought consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from my eyes. Thus I have been in your house 20 years. 20 years I served you. 14 years for your 2 daughters, and 6 years for your flock. And you've changed my wages 10 times. Unless the God of my father, the God of Abraham and the fair Isaac had been with me, surely you would have sent me away empty-handed. God has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked you last night. So, yeah, he condemned Jacob. I mean, he condemned Laban. Jacob condemned Laban. So anyway, now they're moving into this covenant, and this is what Laban says to him. Let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me. And that part, I like that part because it's letting us know the purpose of a covenant. It's a witness. It says, so they took stones, they made a heap. Excuse me. They took stones, they made a heap. This is what it says. Let me just read it. It says, starting in verse 45, so Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. Then Jacob said to his brethren, gather stones. And they took stones and made a heap. And they ate there on the heap. Laban called it Jagar Sahadutha, but Jacob called it Gilead. And Laban said, this heap is a witness between you and me to this day. Therefore, its name was called Gilead, also Mizpah. I'm sorry. It says, because he said, may the Lord watch between you and me when we are absent from one another. If you afflict my daughters, or if you take other wives besides my daughters, although no man is with us, see, God is witness between you and me. So that part, of course, there was more that he said, but I want to stop at that part because he called God to be a witness. And I like how he said, although no man is with us, see, God is a witness. between you and me. In other words, a lot of times, like for instance, I'm in my room, I'm in my office, nobody's in here with me, my door is closed, right? So you would think that nobody can see me, nobody can see what I'm doing. But here's the thing, it's not about what man can see, it's about what Jehovah El Roy, it's about our remembering that Jehovah is El Roy. He is the God who sees, Yahweh El Roy. And that's what he said here, don't think that basically Laban is being a typical dad, a dad of daughters, and he's giving his son-in-law piece of advice, like, don't think that, because you're not in my presence no more, that I can't come at you. He said, don't think that nobody sees God to be a witness between you and I. If you afflict my daughters, if you hurt my daughters in any type of way, if you take other wives, it says, besides my daughters, although no man is with us, God is witness between you and me. So it continues, this is verse 51. It says, then Laban said to Jacob, here is this heap, and here is this pillar, which I have placed between you and me. This heap is a witness, and this pillar is a witness, that I will not pass beyond this heap to you, and you will not pass beyond this heap and this pillar to me for harm. It says, and God, the God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, the God of their father, and that their father would have been Terah. The father would have been Terah. Nahor is Laban's dad, and Nahor is Laban and Rebekah's dad. Abraham is Nahor's brother. Terah was the father of both of them. It says, the God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, and the God of their father judge between us. And Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. Then it says, then Jacob offered a sacrifice on the mountain and called his brethren to eat bread. And they ate bread and stayed all night on the mountain. And early in the morning Laban arose, kissed his sons and daughters, and blessed them. Then Laban departed and returned to his place. So that was the end of chapter 31. But that covenant that he said, hold on a second. Okay, so this, we finished chapter 31 of Genesis, looking at all of it. And again, this covenant was a covenant of separation. And that kind of reminded me of like, if anybody been through a divorce and they would sit down with the lawyers, and they would divide up whatever, and then they would go their separate ways, right? With a divorce. And so this covenant was a covenant of separation. It was a covenant of separation and peace. It was a covenant wherein they were saying, I'm going my way, you go your way, and for whatever was divvied up or however, they weren't divvying up anything. But I like how it was a reminder that he said, even though no man is with us. Let me go back to that part. Genesis 31, because I had closed my Bible, y'all. So Genesis 31, he said, where is it? Here. Although no man is with us, see, God is witness between you and me. I want to make sure I mark that. Although no man is with us, see, God is witness between you and me. And that was the covenant, that regardless of any person here on this earth, regardless of anybody seeing, God sees and God hears. Although no man is with us, that's verse 50, Genesis 31:50. Although no man is with us, see, God is witness between you and me. And so, what I wrote in my notes is this: God is not distant nor detached. He is actively aware of and concerned with the lives of individuals. Number one, he sees me. Number two, he hears me. I got Psalm 17:6. Let me go look at that in reference to God hearing. Psalm 17:6. This is what it says. I have called upon you, for you will hear me, O God. Incline your ear to me and hear my speech. So he is Jehovah El Shammah. He is a God who hears. And in reference to him being a God who sees, that's Hebrews chapter 4, verse 13, where it says, and there is no creature hidden from his sight, but all things are naked and open to the eyes of him to whom we must give an account. So that part, this covenant, this particular covenant, is a reminder that God is present. He's ever present. He's seeing, he's listening, he cares. And when he is for us, no one can be against us. So, yeah, that part. Well, with that, I'm going to leave you guys. I'm sorry that I'm late with this video, but I think I did it much better this time than I did the other time when I was really, really, really tired. I think I got more out of it this time and was able to share it in a way that hopefully you are able to benefit too. Oh, also, let's not forget those vows that we make to God, because we know that he's listening, he's paying attention. That's why he tells us the vows that we make we must keep. So he remembers them and he will recall them to mind. Jacob made that vow in Genesis chapter 28. And in Genesis chapter 31, the angel of the Lord was reminding him, like, remember that vow you made? He says, I'm the God that you make that vow to. Like, so, yeah. All right, y'all. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Have a blessed rest of your day. Bye.